Yo, what up guys, your boy Navi Drizzle, and today we got a Bounty Fest tier list, a One Piece Bounty Rush tier list, more specifically for the Bounty Fest units of 2023. And the reason I'm doing this is because I realized 5th anniversary is literally right around the corner. As the time I'm recording this video, Yamato and Ace are about to drop in a few hours, right? So we're really close to the 5th anniversary. And so I know a whole bunch of new players are going to start joining, ready to try out the game just because they see the advertisements and stuff like that. Because, you know, with every anniversary, you get that mass promotion. So you get new players to come out and try out the game. So I wanted to make a tier list more specifically for the Bounty Fest units, because those are, let's be honest, those are the best units outside of extreme units are the Bounty Fest units, right? And that typically is the meta. Those are typically the units that you would want to recommend for new players. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this video. Now let's start off from the very beginning. The very first Bounty Fest units that we got after the anniversary in January were Who's Who and Jinbei. Now let's start off with Who's Who. Who's Who is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. He is a unit that does extra damage to Straw Hat Pirates specifically, but outside of that, I will say he is pretty limited in what he does, and because of that, I think putting him in B in just a pretty good tier list. If you manage to get Who's Who, he is solid, right? Like I said, he does extra damage to Straw Hat units, and this is a One Piece game, so you can imagine Straw Hat units are in abundance, right? There's plenty of them that got released this year that are meta, that people are using, that this guy can do, you know, really good damage against and be a really good counter. But outside of that, outside of units that are not Straw Hats, he tends to lack, right? I do play him at 5-star, right? So he may be a little bit better at 6-star, but in my opinion, I think B rank, having him at a good tier right there is good enough. I don't see him any higher than that, especially because the units that are higher than him, I think, are clear and cut above him. So Who's Who being B tier is pretty good. Now let's move on to Jinbei. Jinbei, sadly, I had to put him a tier below and not bad. He's still pretty solid. He's really good against power users, right? Devil Fruit users. And honestly, Yamato and Ace are releasing, and if you take a look at their kits, this guy might actually be like a secret counter to them, because he is a damage reduction unit, right? He doesn't really focus on defense buffing. I mean, even though he does buff his defense, he only buffs his defense when he's fighting against Devil Fruit users, who Yamato and Ace are, right? So that's why I think he could be a really good counter, or at the very least stalemate Yamato and Ace. We will have to see, but for right now, outside of the meta, there's a reason nobody's using this guy, right? He's really just not that good. His counter skill could be better. I don't know. I feel like the problem with him is that they made him a little too defensive, and they didn't really give him too many offensive skills outside of fighting power users. And, you know, not everybody, you know, the most meta, even though a lot of meta characters are Devil Fruit users and stuff like that, I feel like they kind of skimped on him. And he is one of those Straw Hat units that he could have just been better, right? They really could have just made him better. It is what it is. Jinbei is a not bad tier. I think, you know, he could have been better, but he's still pretty solid if you get him. He is a Bounty Festival unit. He is a premium unit. So don't feel bad if you get him, but I will say you will notice the difference. Now, speaking of which, noticing the difference is my boy Cracker. Now, my boy Cracker, I had to put him in S tier. Without a doubt, speaking of Yamato and Ace, this guy is going to be a really good counter with him, because his skill 1 ignores damage reduction, which Yamato and Ace are. They're a damage reduction unit. They stack damage reduction instead of stacking defense. He also has type advantage because he is a blue unit. Yamato and Ace are a red unit, as well as he has 80% status effect reduction, which Ace inflicts with status effects, right? And a lot of his traits depend on inflicting status effect. This guy is just kind of built to be a really good counter, in the same way that opbr is a counter to Luffy. I can feel like this guy can be a really good counter to Yamato and Ace. I'm interested in seeing like just it in action. It's gonna be a fun meta, a fun season, you know, in these next 2 weeks. But you know, look out for my boy Cracker, S tier for sure. You know, he's still pretty solid if you manage to get him, if you manage to summon him, bro. You got yourself a good character for sure. Now Brulee's also, I'm gonna put her in C tier. I don't think she's bad per se. She is a really good unit. Like, she's a decent defender, right? But yeah, again, there's a reason you don't see her too often in the meta. I feel like her gimmick, having the ability to teleport people, right? Like it's mainly a hybrid Kaido counter, and I guess it can work on Greenbull as well. So she could rise a little bit into like, I mean, I would say she's a little bit better than Jinbei in my opinion. She could be a decent counter to Greenbull, because Greenbull is a unit that can teleport to flags and stuff like that, and being able to knock them out with that counter is pretty decent. But I think right now Brule, she's a solid, not bad. If you summon for her, you know, she's not a bad unit. You could level her up, you could use her, you could try to main her, but again, the units that are above her are clearly above her, and I feel like you would have more fun playing Who's Who than you would Brule, right? As a new player, as somebody who's, you know, playing for the 5th anniversary, and even like just overall as a character, I think Who's Who is better. But she is like, I mean, you can argue if she's better than Jinbei or not. I think she is. But yeah, I think C tier is pretty solid for Brule. You know, she's not bad, right? This is the not bad tier, but she could be better. Let's move on to my boy Hakuba. Now, Hakuba is pretty interesting. I will put this guy in the really good tier. The only problem with Hakuba though is that Film Red Shanks exists, and Hakuba is a stunning unit, right? So every time Hakuba inflicts stun on Film Red Shanks, Shanks ends up healing, right? Shanks has an ignore damage reduction skill. He has type advantage against Hakuba. You know, he's really strong green unit. Speaking of really strong green units, we have gear 5. So you don't really see this guy getting too much play, but whenever he goes off, whenever he's able to get those stuns off and he's able to capture flags and actually play the role that he's meant to play, he's actually a pretty good unit. So I think a solid A tier for Hakuba is not too bad. Now let's moving on to Don Chinjiao, the Bounty Fest unit that came alongside with him. I will put this guy low key. I'll put him in good. I think he's decent. I do think he is a better defender than Brule and Jinbei, especially because of his shield mechanic. But I don't like that he debuffs himself. I don't like that he slows himself down after using skill 2. And I don't know. I feel like he's a pretty good counter against Zoro. But outside of that, like, again, you don't see this guy get that much use. So, I mean, there's a reason for that. Maybe because he's unpopular. A lot of people don't like to use him. But there's better units in the tiers above that does what he does, but better, right? Like, there's just better defenders out there. There's better attackers. There's better runners. So I think him being in elite B tier, he's a good solid unit. If you manage to summon, you know, don't feel bad. He's solid. If you level him up, you can use him. He's pretty good. Moving on to Brooke. Now, Brooke, I am going to put him in A tier. I do feel like a few people could try to argue S tier. Actually, I'll put him above. Like he could be an S tier. He really could. He is solid. I might move him up in S tier depending on how I feel with the other units, but this guy is solid. Being able to freeze every time he's downed, he has that ghost, right? So if the enemy doesn't have any status effect reduction or any like nullification like that, you can get him in a solid freeze, right? Every time you freeze, I believe he stacks, so he gets stronger based off that. Get your counters off. He's solid. I just think he kind of got power crept relatively fast, in the sense that, bro, they released Kid and Law, right? Type advantage runner that ignores defense, right? Law nullifies status effects when he has like high HP. They kind of screwed him over, in my opinion. They really did. But besides that, like, you know, he still does really well. Like, he can be recovery blocked, right? Or stolen heart. I mean, I think he can be recovery blocked. But besides that, like, yeah, I think A tier for right now. He's pretty solid. I'll keep him in A tier for sure. If I see the other units and I can probably, if I can move him up to S tier, I'll see. But for right now, I think I'll have him in A for sure. Moving on to Robin. I'm gonna have to put Robin in B tier. I'm just gonna be honest. She's pretty good, but she is one of those units. She is one of those straw hats that I feel like they just could have made better. I have no idea why they decided to make her that way. She could have been a lot more dominant, especially compared to Nami, right? Like, Nami's an S tier unit, right? Like, Nami's just a really good attacker. Comparatively, right, this red attacker against the blue attacker, Robin, like, she's good against runners. But outside of that, you know, and then again, right, gear 5. And here's the problem with gear 5 right now, is that it makes a lot of these blue units obsolete. Because these blue units can perform better, right? Like I said, Hakuba here. Cracker's just that good, by the way. Like, it doesn't matter. Cracker just got it. You know, he is a damage reduction unit. That ignore defense don't work on him. But it is sad to say, I feel like a lot of people who like Robin could also say that, like, she could have been better. And she should have been better, right? As well as people wanted, you know, Demonio Fleur Robin. They didn't really want this version of Robin. But she's solid. If you manage to pull her, she's still really good. You can build her, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people that can recommend really good medals for her. But I'll just have to put her in B tier. She is solid, but if you're a brand new player, she's not somebody who you can jump for joy and be like, yo, I got a really, really solid unit. Speaking of solid units, I got my boy Usopp, which I'm going to put him in A tier. I feel like he's also one of those units that if you want, maybe you can put him in S tier. You can argue he is an S tier unit, but I do feel like Kid and Law are just like a better version of him, right? Like, they can just grab the treasure without ignoring. Greenbull's a better runner as well, in the sense that, like, this guy has to put you to sleep before he can grab the treasure and ignore it, right? Greenbull can just walk up as long as he has enough HP. Law and Kid, it doesn't matter. They just grab the treasure, right? But he's still pretty solid. He is. I mean, this Usopp does pretty decent damage, right? Being able to hit people with sleep is pretty annoying. I think A tier for sure. I think if you pull this Usopp, if you manage to pull this Usopp, you won't feel bad. He is pretty solid. He's pretty good. Moving on to my boy Neptune. Neptune is a unit that I'm going to have to put in good tier. While he isn't bad, and you may argue he can be an A tier, he's one of those units where, like, he's a support unit, but the problem is that he's just, I don't know. Like, I feel like compared to this other support unit that there's on this list that I'm going to talk about later, I feel like he definitely is lackluster. He does pretty good damage, right? Especially against power users or devil fruit users, right? Because he does have that, like, Kamehameha, that water blast, right? That does like 200% damage or whatever. It's pretty solid. And I'm sure if you have him, you know, 6-star, you can make a pretty good argument that he's deserving. He is a Bounty Fest unit. He is a premium unit. But I think B tier is where he deserves to be. You know, you could, like I said, you could make an argument. I don't think he's S tier at all. I just don't. I mean, there's a reason people don't use him that much, despite there being so much devil fruit users. He's just pretty alright, you know. So I think B tier for him is solid. If you manage to pull him, again, don't feel bad. Moving on, we're gonna go to Horty Jones. I think Horty's pretty solid as well, right? He does extra damage to devil fruit users, but, like, he actually does, like, really solid damage. And if you manage to catch people off guard, you can, like, damn near one-shot them. Maybe you can land both of the sharks. Him perking up, right, boosting himself. It does suck that he reduces his HP. I guess it's kind of canon to the story itself, but I don't like when units debuff themselves. I just really don't. I feel like if we have units that can just do it all, right, EX units rarely ever debuff themselves. They just end up doing everything with little to no repercussions to themselves. So whenever we get Bounty Fest units or step up units, I just don't like it. But I think this guy is a good enough runner to have him in A tier. He is pretty solid. His normals are okay. I just like him, right? I think he is. If you pull him, be happy you pull him. He is pretty solid. Maybe he's a little bit better than Hakuba, you can argue. But moving on, we got Killer. Killer is pretty good. In the past, I had him a little bit higher. Here's the thing with Killer. I don't think he's bad. And I think he's just like a really solid unit, right? Like, but I don't see anybody being a little, like, too happy pulling him. He's not really putting up numbers right now. He's not really killing, like, a lot of units. He's doing his job for sure, but I think right now, B tier. You can argue A tier. If you want to put him A tier, I wouldn't mind being, like, at the end of A tier. But I think B tier would probably fit him a lot better. You know, again, like, you pull him, you're gonna be like, yo, I got Killer, he's pretty good, I can use him. But you're not like, yo, I got Killer, oh, you know, I'm about to max him out real quick so I can start using him. Like, he's not that type of unit. I think he's just solid. Put him in B tier. Moving on to Uta. Uta I might skip because Uta is a special unit. Uta, you can't pull her. She's not like the regular Bounty Fest units. You have to pull her on her specific banner, right, on the film red banners. So I think I will skip out on her, but if I did have to rank her, I would put her on S tier. She is a solid unit. The only reason you don't see a lot of this Uta around, besides her being like a limited type of unit, is because of Gear 5. If Gear 5, I promise you, if Gear 5 didn't show up when he did, if a good counter against Albert, because you're able to, like, she does multi-hit on her normals, she heals every time she hits on her normals, and then she has a chance of inflicting Sing Sing effect, right? She gets invulnerability damn near, I'm pretty sure she gets invulnerability when she's like using her skill 2, or at least she gets like high damage reduction and knockback resistance and stuff like that. I forget the skills at the top of my head, but she's really solid unit, right? But she is a blue defender, and sadly, you know, the best unit in the game is a green defender. So yeah, it is what it is, but in my opinion, I would put her in S tier. But for right now, I'm gonna just drop her off, not put her in the tier list. That way new players, they know, hey, if I can get the unit, I know what it is. Some people would want to argue he should be an S tier, and maybe at Sanji's peak he can be S tier, but here's the thing. It takes a lot more effort for Sanji to be in this tier than it would Cracker or Nami. And that's just a fact. Right? Cracker and Nami, they're doing more damage. They're, you know, they're tanking more. By the way, they're healing more. They're inflicting with status effects. They're just better, in my opinion. And Nami's Cloud Zeus, being able to just fly around, is dope. It's super strong, especially if you can, like, if you have no status effect resistance to that, you're pretty much stuck from long range. And then if she walks up to you, uses her skill 1, or that zap move, I think it's skill 1 or skill 2, that's an OP move. If that hits, that you can pretty much get one shot. You can get comboed. Same thing with Cracker, right? His Cracker can come back infinitely as long as, you know, you use it correctly. He ends up healing. He's really good against, you know, status reduction. Sanji has status reduction as well. He has 80% status reduction. The problem with Sanji, and the reason he's not in S tier in my opinion, is because the way he stacks defense is annoying. He has to hit 4 times in order for him to get a proper stack. I think that's dumb. They really should have just made it every time he got hit, maybe, or at least twice, but I don't know why they made it 4 hits. I think making it 4 hits is kind of dumb. It makes him weaker for no reason. And he doesn't have good damage reduction. And because he doesn't have good damage reduction, right, because he stacks his defense, well, they released a unit right after him, Albert, where we're going to talk. Albert, I'm going to put him in S tier. By the way, I don't think I talked about it, but SS, this I'm going to do at the end. I'm going to rank the top 3 units at the end. But for right now, we're just going to be talking about tier list overall. Albert completely screwed this guy over. Not only does he have type advantage, and sure, Sanji can change his color, this and that, it's nice. But he does extra damage to units that boost their defense. That's what Sanji does. You know, it is what it is. And Sanji doesn't really have any good damage reduction, so it kind of sucks, right? Sanji is a unit that he just could have been better. I don't know why they limited him the way they did, but it is what it is. Albert's an S tier for sure. I think anybody who's played the game currently knows why he's an S tier. He just does high damage. You know, he's one of the units that can one-shot the best unit in the game, right? He can one-shot Gear 5. He does really good against the meta units, against Big Mom, against, you know, Kid and Law, Hybrid Kaido. Pull Albert, if you pull Nami, if you pull Cracker, like, these are units that you're like excited, you should get excited about. Like, these are top units. You're gonna have fun with these units. They're really strong. Queen is also a really strong unit. I will put her in A tier. Him in A tier, my bad. Actually, matter of fact, I'm gonna put him in S tier because I think he is just that good. The problem with Queen is honestly, he got overshadowed by Albert. Like, Albert is just that much better, right? Like, Queen is, I don't think there's really that much bad about Queen. Like, he's a solid unit. He's really good. He's a good counter to Gear 5 because every time he gets hit with knockback, he turns invisible, and he's able to capture flag even when enemy treasure's on there. So, like, this guy's still pretty solid. His skills are pretty solid. I think S tier is he's definitely better than Sanji, so I think S tier for sure for this guy. Now, moving on to Bello Betty. Bello Betty is also a unit I'm going to put in S tier. And it's mainly because, like I said with Neptune, is that she is a support unit. But she is so much better, bro. Like, without a doubt, when you have a Bello Betty, you have a maxed out Bello Betty on your team, and they work the way they work, they're buffing you. You're in that trade area, you're getting that defense buff, that speed buff, you're running around. That's the best feeling in the world. I'm not even joking, bro. Bello Betty with team boost is insane, dude. She's such a good support unit. The problem is that she is support unit, and in this game, sadly, not everybody's team player. Even though it is a team game, sometimes people just wouldn't want to run her because yeah, like you may be able to defend your flag and support your allies, but your allies aren't getting enough kills, or they're not capturing flags, or they're doing dumb moves, right? They're not splitting up, they're not playing objective. So it is frustrating to play as her, but I think if you pull her, if you manage to get her, Bello Betty is a pretty solid unit, I'm not gonna lie. Like, she's somebody you're like, yo, I got her, I'm happy, I got Bello Betty, without a doubt. She's my girl. Now Karasu, I think Karasu is a pretty good runner, but I am gonna put him A tier because I think the runners that are in S tier are just better than him. He's not bad, but I feel like his damage isn't enough, and he is kind of squishy, but he's pretty solid. He's pretty solid. Moving on, dude, Frankie's a better runner. Frankie's clearly S tier for sure. Like I said, I think he's a better runner than Karasu. The fact that he has damage reduction when he's capturing a flag. He gets rid of enemy stacking defense, which is nice, especially in the meta with Gear 5, right? So if you're trying to capture treasure against Gear 5, pretty solid. He has long range moving distance skills, which are always beneficial for runners. Without a doubt, Frankie is an S tier unit. If you manage to get Frankie, you should be happy. Boy is solid for sure. Now, moving on to Chopper. Chopper, he's alright. He's pretty good. I think I might put him at the end of A tier. He's not that bad, but again, like, he's not a unit where I feel like we have yet to have a really insane, really strong, like broken Chopper, right? Like, at least Chopper version of like a Frankie or this Nami. He's not that bad, but he's kind of lackluster, I'm not gonna lie. I wish he wouldn't depend on stacking. Like, this multi-hit to stack, I hate. I don't really like it, in my opinion. But I guess I understand it, right? He has a Kung Fu point, this and that. It is what it is. I'll say Chopper, he's an A tier. If you get him, actually, I'm gonna put him B tier. If you get him, he's a pretty solid unit, but he's nothing to be like super excited about. Super like yo, I got him, what's up? Yeah, nah, not really. He's not really that type of unit. It is what it is. Moving on to Momonosuke. Now, Momonosuke I would put an A tier, and honestly, Greenbull I'm gonna put an S tier. These guys just came out. Momonosuke is a really good defender. I think he would be a better defender if he was just like overall neutral, but he is a unit that has traits specifically for Animal Kingdom pirates, which for right now in this meta is nice, but think like 2-3 years from now, when we're outside of Wano and we're no longer playing against like really broken Animal Kingdom pirate, like we might still have Kaido and this and that, but eventually, we're gonna be falling off and we're gonna be focusing on like the new saga, the new arcs. We might revisit old, pre-time skip arcs and stuff like that. So the meta units that are like meta right now, Animal Kingdom pirates, they might not be in the future. So I think Momonosuke is pretty solid. I wish he would do a little bit more damage, but it is what it is. A tier for sure. He is a really good defender. His dragon mode is nice. I like that he teleports he is like just the same as he's a mix between blue defender Kaido and hybrid Kaido, right? Where he can hit, he doesn't do multi-hit on all his treasures, but he's able to teleport to his own treasure, the furthest one away. So it's cool. Greenbull, I like Greenbull a little bit better because it doesn't matter what level you are. His skills are percentage based, so you're going to be doing the same amount of damage as you would if you were weaker or stronger. Solid runner, able to teleport to the closest flag, ignore defense, and when he gets hit with knockback, he recovers. Whenever he gets killed on the flag, he recovers 50% HP. There's a possibility where you can get killed with a skill, get hit with knockback, and that together will heal you like 80%. It's insane, bro. Like, this dude is actually a really solid unit. And I think the people that sleep on this guy right now are only sleeping on him because they're saving for 5th anniversary, right? But this guy in like 2-3 months, whenever the anniversary is over, People are going to be looking at Greenbull like, damn, he's a really good runner. He's a super annoying runner. He's a solid runner. Unless like he completely gets shafted by the 5th anniversary units, which I don't see happening, right? Because that didn't happen with King over here. King released on December 2022. That's the reason he's not on this list, by the way. But yeah, like I Greenbull for sure. And because I'm gassing up Greenbull so much, he is one of the first units I will put in the top 3. opbr for sure. I think opbr is probably the best Bounty Fest unit without a doubt. And then my boy Cracker and Greenbull. Now the reason I chose these 3 over everybody else, opbr I think is pretty self-explanatory for a lot of people who play the game. He's super strong, right? He does insane damage. He has invincibility, right? Whenever he perfect dodges, he has 3 free hits you can get off of him. You're able to perfect dodge when you're getting hit. That's pretty insane that like how defensive and offensive they made opbr. I think without a doubt him being the top 3 makes sense. Greenbull, he just released, and like I said, I feel like in the future people are going to realize this dude is a lot more broken than we think. A lot of people are just saving their gems right now for the 5th anniversary units, so they don't know fully. But in the future, without a doubt, I think this guy's going to be a monster. Him being able to teleport, ignore, right, treasure. They call him the immortal runner for a reason. This dude's going to be really solid. And unless we get a super anti-heal unit, right, even more so than Hybrid Kaido, right, with type advantage and all this and that, I don't think Greenbull is going to be going away anytime soon. And Cracker is really like, he's just going to get better with time. And that shows with Yamato and Ace. Yamato and Ace are releasing in a few hours by the time I'm recording this video. And this dude is like damn near a complete counter to him. And he came out almost a year ago. He came out 11 months ago. I believe he was the February Bounty Fest unit. This dude is insane. Like ignoring damage reduction, getting your skill 2 back constantly, right? Healing. Dude, there's just so much that he does. It's insane. Getting skill cooldown, and he's a pretty good unit, I think, without a doubt. Funny enough, this is the red unit, this is a green unit, and this is a blue unit, so they're separate each. But I think these are the top 3 units of today's meta, at least in terms of Bounty Fest units. Everyone else, like I said, everybody in S tier, if you want to make an argument, if you want to replace the top 3 with any of these other 4 down here, I can see why. Right? Some people might put Frankie above Greenbull. Some people might put Nami above Cracker. Voice crack right there. But I think Greenbull, Cracker, and opbr, without a doubt, probably are the top 3 best units. For sure. I mean, I'm interested. Let me know what you guys think. Without a doubt, if you're a new player, brand new player to this game, if you made it this far, if you actually watched all 30 minutes of this video, these are what, or unless you skipped, maybe you skipped just to see the ending and see which ones are the best units you can get. It is what it is. This, in my opinion, are the best Bounty Fest units you can get. You can summon 4 as of the 5th anniversary, right? I mean, they could release new Bounty Fest, but I think it's just going to be extreme units for January. I think maybe at the end of January they might release a Bounty Fest unit, but they might wait till February. We will have to wait and see for sure. But yeah, guys, it's been fun. You know, it's been a long video for sure, but yeah, that is my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a happy new year. Deuces.